Welcome to Vanguard, where humans aren't the underdogs. We're the endgame. Enjoy the journey. The bridge of UESS Kepler drifted in the half-silence of routine patrol, a place where boredom and vigilance existed in an uneasy truce. Outside the panoramic forward screen, a pale blue nebula stretched like a ghostly ocean across the void, its light refracting gently against the ship's shields. Inside, only the soft hum of reactors and the faint tapping of consoles broke the quiet. Captain Elena Vasquez sat in her command chair with one boot hooked around its base, a steaming mug of bitter synth coffee resting in one hand. 20 years in the fleet had taught her that nothing truly dangerous ever announced itself with drama. Disasters began quietly, subtly, with a number out of place. A sensor ping that didn't make sense. Routine sweep complete, Lieutenant Park reported from the navigation station. All sectors stable, no anomalous mass signatures, no FTL wakes. Clean space. Elena took a slow sip and grimaced. Copy that. Maintain scan pattern. Let's not get lazy just because the galaxy looks peaceful today. Around her, the bridge crew relaxed by a fraction. Patrol duty along the outer trade lanes was usually uneventful. Pirates avoided Council territory. Smugglers didn't risk this deep, and hostile species rarely crossed these borders without permission, which was why the alarm hit like a knife to the spine. A shrill, piercing scream of sound tore through the bridge, red warning glyphs exploding across every display at once. Elena's coffee flew from her hand as she surged upright. "Report!" she snapped. Park's fingers flew across his console, his face draining of color in the harsh blue light of the holographic instruments. "Captain, massive spatial distortion at bearing 270. His voice faltered. "It's enormous. Energy readings are off the scale." Elena's pulse thudded in her ears as she strode toward the central display. In 2 decades of service, she had never heard that edge of fear in Park's voice. "Put it on screen." The forward display flickered. At first, there was nothing, just stars, cold and distant. Then space itself twisted. The void folded inward like fabric caught in an invisible fist. Light bent at impossible angles, colors bleeding where none should exist. A violent whirl of purple and gold energy erupted from nothingness, spiraling outward in a roaring, silent storm. Elena's breath caught in her throat. The distortion expanded rapidly, stretching for kilometers, its surface rippling like liquid glass under titanic pressure. Sensors screamed in protest, as if reality itself were being violated. "Run full-spectrum analysis," Elena ordered. "All bands. And wake Dr. Chen, now." "Aye, Captain," Park's voice shook. "Captain, something's forming inside the distortion." The vortex flared. A blinding surge of light tore outward, and something massive pushed through. Gasps rippled across the bridge as the object emerged fully into real space. It was a ship, not a cruiser, not a carrier, a colossus. The vessel dwarfed the Kepler as a mountain dwarfs a grain of sand. Its hull was unmistakably human in origin. Angular, layered, forged in the brutal functional geometry of Earth fleet design. But that familiarity ended almost immediately. Alien structures clung to its surface like living armor. Vast spines of dark crystalline metal curved along its frame, threaded with glowing veins of soft blue and molten gold. Segments of the hull shifted subtly, as if the ship itself were breathing. It was human, and it absolutely was not. Elena stared, her instincts screaming that she was looking at something that violated every law she knew. "Identification," she whispered. The ship's computer hummed, parsing waveforms and spectral echoes, digging through centuries of archived records. Seconds stretched like hours. Then the result appeared on the main screen. UESS Prometheus. Colony vessel departure date, January 15th, 2177. Status, lost with all hands. A chill went through the bridge. "That's impossible," Park whispered. Elena's jaw tightened. The Prometheus vanished 170 years ago. The Prometheus had been the pride of early interstellar humanity, a massive colony ship carrying over 50,000 souls toward a distant, habitable star system. It had entered a naturally forming wormhole at the edge of map space, and it had never come out. The wormhole collapsed behind it like a cosmic guillotine. No debris, no signal, no survivors. For nearly 2 centuries, the ship had been a legend whispered in spacefaring families, a monument to hope and tragedy in equal measure. Life signs? Elena asked quietly. The science officer hesitated. Affirmative, Captain. Multiple human biosignatures detected. Thousands of them. The bridge fell dead silent. Elena felt her heartbeat thudding in her throat. This can't be real. Before anyone could respond, the comm officer spoke up sharply. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the anomalous vessel. Automated broadcast, audio only. It's repeating on all frequencies. Play it. Static burst from the bridge speakers, distorted and warped by residual radiation. Then a voice emerged, crackling, damaged, but unmistakably human. This is the UESS Prometheus. We have returned. Humanity prevails. We have returned. Humanity prevails. The message looped endlessly, a ghost declaration echoing through space. Elena swallowed. Open a channel, she ordered. Direct hail. I want to speak to whoever's in command of that ship. No response. Again they tried. And again, only the same message answered. Something was deeply wrong. Dr. Marcus Chen burst onto the bridge moments later. Lab coat half-buttoned, hair in total rebellion against gravity. You'd better not have dragged me out of REM sleep for... He froze mid-sentence as he saw the main display. His glasses slid halfway down his nose. That, he breathed, is not possible. You're repeating yourself, Elena said. Chen stumbled forward, gripping the railing for balance. Captain, that ship is ancient. Its original alloys alone should have degraded to dust, and yet it's radiating energy signatures we literally cannot generate. Park brought up power readings. Captain, the Prometheus is producing more energy than our entire patrol fleet combined. And the gravitational distortions around it, these waves shouldn't exist. Not with any technology in our database, human or alien. Elena felt a slow, creeping dread slide down her spine. It left before first contact, she said softly. Chen nodded. Before the council, before the technological restrictions. That changed everything. 40 years ago, humanity had officially joined the Galactic Council, a vast political and technological union of ancient spacefaring species. With membership had come protection and limits, strict, absolute limits on what younger civilizations were allowed to research or build. The rules were presented as safety measures, but now, staring at the impossible shape of the Prometheus, Elena felt something else entirely beneath those laws. Fear. Send a priority alert to Earth Command, she ordered. Full anomaly report, and notify the council immediately. Park hesitated just long enough for Elena to notice. Yes, Captain. The response came back faster than she expected. Earth Command is scrambling the first response fleet. ETA 6 hours, the comm officer reported. In the council, they're dispatching orbiters. A cold hush fell over the bridge. The orbiters were not diplomats. They were enforcers, ancient warships belonging to the oldest species in the council. When orbiters arrived, laws were not discussed. They were applied. How long? Elena asked. 12 hours, maybe less. Elena looked back at the massive alien-human hybrid drifting in the void. 12 hours to understand how a dead ship returned with forbidden technology, and 12 hours before the most powerful entities in the galaxy decide what to do with it. Park stiffened suddenly. Captain, Prometheus is launching a craft, small vessel, heading directly toward us. On screen, a sleek shuttle detached from the larger ship, its hull shimmering with faint quantum distortion as it accelerated toward the Kepler. Battle stations, Elena ordered. Raise shields, weapons hot, but do not fire unless fired upon. The bridge lights shifted to deep red as defensive systems powered up. Magnetic rail cannons aligned silently. Missile bays cycled. Elena's hand hovered near her sidearm without her even realizing it. The shuttle approached with perfect control, matching the Kepler's vector flawlessly. No turbulence, no hesitation. It docked. Steam hissed through the airlock as the internal chamber pressurized. Elena assembled a security team and strode toward the docking bay, Chen right at her side, his face pale with awe and terror in equal measure. They took up positions behind portable energy shields as the inner door began to cycle. With a hydraulic sigh, the hatch slid open. Mist poured out. Then figures emerged. They wore old Earth Fleet uniforms, the kind Elena had only seen in museum displays and historical footage. The cuts were outdated, the insignia obsolete. But the people inside those uniforms were not old. They were young, strong. Their movements were too smooth, too precise. Their eyes reflected light in faint, unnatural patterns. A tall man with dark skin and calm, piercing eyes stepped forward. He carried no weapon. His hands were raised slightly in a non-threatening gesture. "Permission to come aboard, Captain," he said. His voice was steady, confident. "I'm Commander Isaiah Grant of the UESS Prometheus." Elena stared at him. According to every archived record in existence, Isaiah Grant had died 170 years ago. Yet the man standing before her looked no older than 40. "Permission granted," she said slowly. "But understand this, Commander. Nothing about your presence here is normal, and you're going to explain all of it." Grant's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "Of course, Captain Vasquez," he said. "We've had a long time to prepare our answers." The quarantine wing of the UESS Kepler had been designed to be humane without ever becoming comfortable. Transparent alloy walls divided sterile white chambers, allowing constant visual surveillance without the psychological cruelty of complete isolation. Soft lighting adjusted automatically to circadian rhythms. The temperature was always perfect, and yet, as Commander Isaiah Grant sat calmly within one of those rooms, hands folded atop the smooth metal table, the space felt anything but safe. Captain Elena Vasquez stood outside the barrier with Dr. Marcus Chen at her side, armed guards positioned at every access point. The rest of Grant's crew had been separated into individual containment rooms, each under similar conditions. They waited. Medical scanners hummed softly as invisible fields passed over Grant's body again and again, probing everything from cellular decay to quantum fluctuations. At last, Chen exhaled slowly and looked up from his datapad. "It's consistent," he said quietly. "Every scan confirms the same thing." Elena didn't take her eyes off Grant. "Say it." "Biologically, he's 38 years old. Perfect health. No telomere degradation beyond normal parameters. No radiation scarring. No signs of cryogenic suspension." Chen hesitated. "His crew ranges from 25 to 60, all physiologically impossible given the disappearance timeline." Elena keyed the intercom. "Commander Grant," she said, her voice steady despite the storm in her chest. "Your medical scans confirm that you and your crew are biologically far younger than the amount of time you were declared missing. 170 years have passed in this region of space." Grant inclined his head slightly. "That aligns with our calculations. For you," Elena continued, "how much time passed?" Grant met her eyes through the transparent barrier. 3 years. The room felt suddenly too small. Chen stepped forward, incredulous. 3 years would require you to have been traveling at relativistic speeds bordering on light itself. And even then, the time compression wouldn't match that ratio unless... He stopped. "Unless space-time itself had been warped." "You didn't just travel through a wormhole," Chen whispered. "You went somewhere outside normal space-time." Grant's expression did not change, but something passed through his eyes. A shadow of memory, heavy and distant. "The wormhole didn't collapse," he said. "It pulled us, stretched us through a region where time and distance no longer obeyed the same rules. We didn't understand it then. We barely understand it now." Elena crossed her arms. "Where did it take you?" Grant was silent for a moment. "Somewhere ancient, he said at last. Somewhere waiting. Before Elena could press further, Park's voice came sharply through her earpiece. Captain, Council Fleet update. Orbiter group just jumped inside the outer perimeter. ETA revised to under 10 hours. Elena closed her eyes briefly. They're coming faster than expected. Grant's lips curved faintly. We anticipated that. Elena turned back toward him. Then you also anticipated what happens if the Galactic Council decides you're in violation of technological restrictions. Yes. And? Grant's smile faded. Then they will attempt to seize the Prometheus. And if they fail, they will attempt to destroy it. Silence stretched between them. Chen studied Grant with naked scientific awe. The modifications on your ship, the power output, that technology doesn't match any known civilization. Not human, not council, not anything cataloged. That's because it predates all of you, Grant replied quietly. That answer landed with more weight than any technical explanation could have. Elena leaned forward. Commander, I need to know something very clearly. Are you still human? Grant did not answer immediately. Instead, he slowly raised his right hand. The skin shimmered. For a fraction of a second, Elena saw beneath it threads of living light weaving through bone and muscle, moving with purpose, reacting to thought. Then the illusion vanished. Flesh became flesh again. We did not stop being human, Grant said softly. But we are no longer what we were. Chen staggered backward as if struck. Neural integration at that depth would obliterate individual identity. It would, Grant agreed. If the system were designed to dominate, it isn't. A new alarm chimed faintly from Elena's console. Another transmission from the Prometheus, but this time it was not automated. This is Commander Isaiah Grant, the message said, echoing through the bridge. Captain Vasquez, we request permission to transmit full records of our encounter to your databanks. You will need them before the council arrives. Elena stared at the console, then back at the man behind the barrier. You want to give us your entire history, she said. Grant nodded once. Everything, the good and the terrible. Elena hesitated. Then she answered, send it. The data flood was immediate and overwhelming. Visual logs, sensor records, biometric telemetry, coded memory fragments reconstructed through unknown compression algorithms. Hours of recorded experience poured into the Kepler systems in seconds. Chen's eyes flew across the incoming streams as his hands shook with barely contained excitement and dread. They were pulled into deep null space, he murmured, a region where classical causality weakens. I've never seen physics behave this way. Elena's gaze never left the central display. The first images resolved into clarity. The Prometheus, adrift in total darkness. Stars stretched into impossible spirals. Gravity inverted. Space folded inward upon itself. Crew screaming as inertial dampeners failed for fractions of seconds that felt like eternities. Then, the station. It emerged from the dark like a god pulled from legend, vast beyond comprehension. Its surfaces were smooth and jagged at the same time, geometry shifting as though reality could not decide how to define it. Entire segments phased in and out of visibility. Light flowed across it like living rivers. Grant's voice overlaid the footage. We thought we were about to die, he said. We didn't know death had something far worse prepared for us. The images jumped forward in time. The crew attempting docking. Security teams vanishing into corridors that reconfigured themselves while they walked. Passages turning into endless loops. Gravity flipping without warning. People crushed against ceilings that had become floors. One crew member screamed as the wall swallowed him like liquid glass. Chen turned away, pale. They were being tested, he whispered, even before they knew it. Another jump. The crew gathered in a massive chamber, the station's heart. Thousands of impossible symbols burned into the air around them. Grant stood before something that looked like a crystal star. That was the moment everything changed. The station didn't speak in words, Grant said through the recording. It spoke in choices. The first test. A fire tore through a habitation ring. Automated systems failed. Life support collapsed. The crew was given a calculation. Divert power to save the engine core, or rewrote it to the ring where 6,000 colonists were trapped. If they chose the core, the ship would survive. If they chose the ring, the Prometheus would be crippled permanently. Grant's recorded voice broke for the first time. We saved the colonists. The footage showed the engine sections dying, power collapsing, systems screaming. The next test came days later. Food replication systems corrupted. Starvation protocols activated. The station offered a solution. Sustain the command staff and specialists, or keep everyone alive by sacrificing propulsion capacity indefinitely. Again, they chose the many over the essential few. Again, the ship suffered. Again and again, it happened. Each test forcing a decision between power and people. Efficiency and morality. Survival of the strong or survival together. And not all of them passed. A faction emerged. Engineers, security officers, strategists, they argued that the station was wasting their potential. That mercy was costing them everything. That power unused was weakness. They attempted a coup. Grant watched the memory with frozen eyes as the mutineers attempted to seize control of the station's interface. The station responded, not with violence, with judgment. The corridor folded inward like a closing fist. The mutineers vanished into blinding light. No bodies were ever found, Grant said quietly in the present. Only echoes. The remainder of the crew never spoke of rebellion again. Chen let out a trembling breath. It wasn't testing intelligence. It wasn't testing engineering. It was testing values. Yes, Grant replied, and it does not accept compromise. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. How many did you lose? She asked. Grant closed his eyes. Nearly 12,000, he said, in 3 years. The silence that followed was suffocating. A colonization mission built on hope had been turned into a crucible of death and judgment beyond any human law. Elena finally spoke. And after all that, it let you leave. Grant looked at her. No, he said. It joined us. At that exact moment, the Kepler's sensors flared violently. Park's voice snapped over comms. Captain, Prometheus just spiked again. Energy levels exceeding previous readings. They're synchronizing with something. Something where? Elena demanded. Park swallowed. With us. Elena turned sharply back to Grant. What did you just do? Grant's eyes reflected faint inner light. Nothing, he said. The station is aware of the Council fleet. It is preparing. The words had barely settled when a new message appeared on every screen across the ship. The insignia of the Galactic Council flared to life. And beneath it, a single, uncompromising demand. Lower shields. Power down the Prometheus. Prepare for Council boarding. The countdown had begun. The chamber at the center of the Prometheus did not exist according to any laws Dr. Chen had ever studied. It was vast, far larger than the ship's external dimensions allowed. An impossible cathedral carved from living crystal and shifting light. The walls were neither solid nor liquid, neither metal nor energy, yet unmistakably real. Patterns moved beneath their surfaces like galaxies trapped in glass. Gravity felt optional here, bending gently around the will of those who entered. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the threshold of that chamber in stunned silence, flanked by Commander Grant and a contingent of Prometheus crew. Chen hovered near her, his hands trembling as his instruments screamed with data his mind could barely process. This space, it's folded, Chen whispered, compressed and layered into higher dimensions. We're standing inside more volume than the ship physically contains. Grant nodded. The station taught the ship how to grow beyond itself. As if in response to his words, the chamber pulsed with faint light. At its center stood a massive crystalline structure, suspended in midair without visible support. It resembled a many-faceted heart, each surface reflecting images that did not belong to this moment. Alien skies, shattered worlds, impossible star systems. This is the interface, Grant said quietly, the core of the precursor system. It is not just a machine, it is an inheritance. Elena felt the faintest whisper at the edge of her thoughts as she gazed at it. Not a voice, not words, a presence. Ancient, patient, vast. What were they? She asked. The precursors. Grant's eyes reflected the shifting light. They were what comes after everything you currently call advanced. The interface flared gently, and the air filled with images. Stars were young again. Galaxies still forming. Civilizations rising and falling like brief sparks in an endless dark. The precursors appeared only in fragments, beings of light and structure, neither purely organic nor mechanical. Their cities were lattices of thought and matter woven together. Their technology did not replace life, it merged with it. They learned, Grant said, that power without wisdom destroys itself. They learned it the hard way. The images changed, worlds burned. Civilizations tore themselves apart after discovering too much, too fast. The interface showed a pattern. Again and again, a species would stumble upon precursor technology, seize it with ambition, weaponize it, dominate neighbors, and finally annihilate itself when the power turned inward. They realized survival of the strongest wasn't enough, Grant continued. Strength had to be balanced by restraint, by compassion, by collective memory. The images shifted again. This time, the precursors created the stations, scattered across the galaxy, hidden in places where only the lost or desperate would ever find them. They built the tests, Chen murmured, understanding dawning, not to grant power, but to filter it. Yes, Grant agreed. The technology does not care how intelligent you are. It cares how you choose. The interface flared once more. A new memory unfolded. The crew of the Prometheus stood in that same chamber 3 years earlier, terrified, exhausted, desperate. The station had already taken thousands of lives through impossible trials. Morale was shattered. Supplies were low. Fear was spreading faster than hunger. And then the station offered them the greatest test yet. The choice appeared as a projection across the chamber: advancement or release. If they chose advancement, the station would bond with them, grant knowledge, power, and transformation beyond anything they could imagine. But the station made one condition clear: not all would survive the process. If they chose release, the station would send them back to normal space. No power, no answers, no salvation for the dead. Just survival. The crew argued for 12 hours. Grant stood among them in the memory, younger and more haunted, blood on his uniform from a trial that had ended minutes before. Some wanted the power. Some wanted to go home. Some wanted revenge for the people they'd already lost. And some wanted to forget the station ever existed. What did you choose? Elena asked softly. Grant closed his eyes. We chose advancement, he said, but not by force. Every single person was given the choice to walk away. The memory shifted again. Thousands stepped forward. Thousands stepped back. Families were separated. Friends said goodbye knowing they might never see each other again. Then the integration began. The station's light poured through them. Bodies convulsed. Minds shattered and rebuilt. Some died instantly, unable to withstand the flood of quantum energy and neural expansion. Others survived, but screamed for days as reality rewired itself inside their thoughts. Grant watched his own transformation in the memory. He collapsed as patterns of light burned beneath his skin. His consciousness fragmented into impossible dimensions. For a moment, he existed as probability rather than flesh. Then he returned. Different, stronger, still himself. The station doesn't modify the body directly, Grant explained in the present. It teaches the mind how to interface with the quantum structure of reality. The body follows. Chen trembled. You didn't become machines. No, Grant said. We became participants. The images jumped forward again. The Prometheus transforming. Whole segments reshaping themselves in response to thought. Engines growing without fuel. Power drawn not from matter, but from the zero-point vacuum of space itself. Zero-point extraction, Chen whispered in disbelief. Theoretical, infinite energy. The station taught us how to listen to the fabric of reality, Grant said. Energy is everywhere. You simply never learned how to ask for it. Elena watched one final memory, the moment the station released them. The Prometheus tore open space-time under its own will. No wormhole generator, no external drive, no traditional FTL system. The ship decided to leave. 3 years after entering hell, they returned to find 170 years had passed. The vision faded. The chamber fell quiet again. Elena's legs felt weak beneath her. You went through all of that, and you still came back to us, Grant nodded. We never stopped being human. Humanity was the one thing the station could never replace. Chen swallowed. And the crew members who chose not to integrate? They remained human in every biological sense, Grant replied. The station respected that. It still does. They cannot manipulate matter with thought. They cannot interface with the deeper systems. But they live among us as equals. Elena stared at the interface. Then why does the Council fear this so much? Before Grant could answer, the chamber trembled subtly. An external signal breached the Prometheus's perimeter fields. The Council fleet. Grant's expression hardened. Because, he said quietly, they have been here before. The interface surged with new imagery. 5,000 years in the past, a crystalline species that would become known as the Orbiters approached a precursor station. Unlike Prometheus, they did not arrive lost and desperate. They arrived with armies. They attempted to seize control. They attempted to extract the power by force. The station responded. Entire star systems folded. Worlds cracked. Billions died in fire so bright it scarred the vacuum itself. Half the orbiter civilization was erased in a single solar cycle. They fled, ashamed, terrified, and furious. They failed the test, Grant said, and they never forgave the technology for judging them. The final image froze on a massive inscription embedded in precursor code. Power taken by force will always turn inward. The chamber dimmed. Elena felt the truth of it settle like a weight in her chest. That's why they limit everyone else, she said. Yes, Grant replied. They tell younger species it's for your protection, but the truth is simpler. Chen looked up. They're afraid someone else might pass. Grant nodded. And change everything. At that exact moment, alarms flared across the Prometheus. Not danger alarms, readiness alarms. The ship was waking fully. Grant turned toward Elena, his eyes now burning with focused resolve. The Council fleet is less than 1 hour out, he said. They will demand we surrender everything. They will call it law. And if we refuse? Elena asked. Grant's gaze shifted toward the infinite stars beyond the chamber. Then they will learn what a living ship can do. Space around the Prometheus ruptured with blinding white flares as the Galactic Council fleet arrived. One by one, 27 massive warships tore their way out of faster-than-light transit, forming a vast, predatory ring around both the Prometheus and the much smaller UESS Kepler. Each vessel dwarfed human cruisers in both size and age, their hulls forged from materials refined by civilizations tens of thousands of years old. Their weapon arrays slid into exposed configurations with mechanical calm, as if the act of threatening annihilation were merely another routine function. On the Kepler's bridge, Captain Elena Vasquez felt the deck vibrate faintly under the pressure of overlapping gravity fields. They're locking targeting solutions, Park reported, his voice tight. All batteries, all platforms. We're painted, Captain. So is the Prometheus. A new signal forced its way through every encrypted channel simultaneously. The insignia of the orbiters burned into the air above the bridge, an angular crystalline symbol glowing with cold authority. The holographic figure of Ambassador Krell resolved at the center of the bridge. Its towering crystalline form shimmered with internal light, refracting through dozens of faceted planes. Even in miniature, the arbiter was overwhelming. Captain Elena Vasquez of the UESS Kepler, the voice grated like continents grinding together. You and the anomalous vessel designated Prometheus are hereby ordered to power down all active systems, Lower shields immediately and prepare for council boarding. Compliance is mandatory. Elena stepped forward, pulse hammering in her ears. Ambassador, the Prometheus has not committed any hostile act. It returned under its own power and has made no threats. Krell's crystalline body shifted, internal light darkening. Possession of unregulated technology constitutes a hostile act. All precursor-level systems are forbidden under council law. Behind Elena, Chen whispered, "They didn't even ask what it is. They already decided." Grant stepped into view beside Elena. "Ambassador Krell," he said calmly, "Commander Isaiah Grant, UESS Prometheus. We have no intention of surrendering our crew or our ship." For the first time, a flicker of something like surprise rippled across the Arbiter's structure. "You are a Tier 1 species," Krell thundered. "You have no legal right to possess technologies beyond your assigned developmental ceiling." Grant's eyes were steady. "And who decided where that ceiling should be?" "The Council," Krell replied instantly. "By consensus of civilizations proven capable of wielding such power." Grant tilted his head slightly. "Proven by what standard?" Krell hesitated for a fraction of a second. That hesitation was everything. A second hologram burst into existence beside the Arbiter, this one belonging to the Vacor Dominion, a heavily militarized reptilian species whose worlds bristled with planetary cannons. "You dare challenge Council authority," the Vacor commander snarled. "Your species is young, impulsive. You will misuse this power, just as countless others have. You will be destroyed." Grant turned his gaze to the Vacor projection. "Your species once stood where we stand now." The Vacor recoiled slightly. "You were restricted," Grant continued. "Your weapons limited. Your research throttled. You were told it was for your own safety." The Vacor said nothing. "You've been a council member for 1,500 years," Grant said, "and you are still forbidden from developing Tier 3 technology. Ask yourself why." The silence on the Vacor channel was sudden and absolute. Elena felt a chill crawl up her spine. Krell's voice cut through the tension. "Enough. These philosophical diversions do not change the law. You will stand down, now." Grant didn't move. Behind him, through the transparent field of the bridge windows, the hull of the Prometheus began to glow. Not brightly, not violently. It glowed the way a star glows. Slow, inevitable, and impossibly deep. Park's hands trembled over his console. "Captain, Prometheus energy readings are spiking again. This is beyond anything we've seen. They're drawing power directly from vacuum fluctuations. It's like the universe itself is feeding them." Krell saw the glow. The Arbiter's crystalline body flared from cool silver to deep warning red. "Cease immediately. This escalation will be met with force." Grant's voice remained calm. "This is not a weapons system." "It most certainly is," Krell roared. "No," Grant corrected gently. "It is a demonstration." The space between the fleets began to distort, not with violence, but with silence. Light bent inward. Background radiation simply stopped. The stars dimmed as if reality itself were holding its breath. On the Kepler's bridge, every display flickered. Then the pulse expanded outward. It did not travel like an explosion. It traveled like a thought. The wave passed over the first Council warship. Instantly, its lights vanished. Engines died. Weapon arrays froze in half-deployed configurations. Momentum bled away as inertial systems shut down. The vessel drifted, alive, intact, and completely powerless. Then the second ship went dark. Then the third. Then the fourth. One by one, across the vast orbital ring, all 27 warships fell silent. No fire, no debris, no casualties, just darkness. Park's voice was barely a whisper. All Council vessels disabled. Life support still active, but everything else is offline. Engines, weapons, shields, they're dead in the void. Emergency signals flooded the comm channels. Panicked, confused, furious. On the bridge hollow, the image of Ambassador Krell flickered wildly. its internal light destabilizing. "What have you done?" the Arbiter roared. "You have committed an act of war." Grant stepped closer to the projection. "Did we destroy a single ship? Did we take a single life? Did we fire a weapon at your crews?" Krell said nothing. "This was mercy," Grant continued. "We showed you what we could do, and then we chose restraint." Another hologram snapped into being, this one belonging to a heavily armored insectoid species. "You have violated every council statute," the being shrieked. "We will rebuild our forces. We will return. And when we do, we will erase your species from the stars." Grant's expression did not change. "You just proved our point," he said quietly. "You don't seek stability. You seek dominance. And that is precisely why the precursor systems rejected you." A third hologram appeared, this one different. The Serani Elder, an ancient, luminous being whose kind had sat on the council longer than almost any other. Unlike the others, the Serani's glow was dim with sorrow, not rage. "Ambassador Krell," the Elder said gently, "did your people encounter precursor technology in the distant past?" The Arbiter's crystalline body dimmed. For a long moment, it said nothing. Then softly, "Yes." A shockwave rippled through the assembled projections. "You failed the tests," the Serani whispered. Krell's internal light flickered violently. "We did what was necessary to preserve order." "You tried to claim what could only be earned," Grant said. "And when it rejected you, you spent millennia ensuring no one else ever had a chance to succeed." The bridge fell into stunned silence. Grant raised his voice just enough to carry to every open channel. "This is what will happen now. The Prometheus will not submit its technology to the Council, but we will not hoard it either. Any species that wishes to approach the precursor systems with humility, restraint, and respect will be allowed to attempt the trials." Krell flared in fury. "This is madness. You will unleash disasters beyond counting." Grant met its gaze. "The disasters already happened. You just buried the evidence." Elena felt her heart pounding painfully in her chest. Before she could overthink it, she stepped forward. "Ambassador Krell," she said, her voice ringing across the bridge, "I formally request that the Council stand down and enter peaceful negotiations with the UESS Prometheus. They have not attacked anyone. They have defended themselves from coercion." Krell turned its blazing gaze toward her. "You are a council officer. You swore an oath." "I swore to protect humanity," Elena replied. "And right now, the greatest threat to humanity is a council fleet that arrived with weapons charged instead of diplomats." The Vacor commander snarled. "You will regret this treachery." The Serani Elder spoke again, its ancient voice heavy with truth. "We once stood where humanity stands now," it said. "We once feared the powerful species who judged us unready. At what point did we decide that fear gave us the right to become them?" No one answered. The stars outside remained dimmed. The 27 warships drifted like powerless gods. Grant's voice carried through the stillness. "We are not declaring war," he said. "We are declaring that humanity will no longer ask permission to exist as something more than you allow." The Arbiter's projection dimmed to a cold, lifeless gray. "This council will remember this," Krell whispered. "And history," Grant replied, "will judge it." 3 months after the silence of 27 warships, the galaxy no longer felt the same. Captain Elena Vasquez, now Admiral Vasquez, stood on the observation deck of Earth Defense Command Station 1, watching the construction swarms move like schools of silver fish around the skeletal frames of 12 massive vessels. The ships were bigger than anything humanity had ever built. Their hulls were neither fully human nor fully alien. Hybrid designs shaped by equations that bent both physics and imagination. They were the first ships of a new era. Behind her, the deck doors whispered open. Dr. Marcus Chen stepped into the chamber, no longer wearing his lab coat. His uniform bore the insignia of a new division that hadn't existed 3 months earlier. Precursor Integration Command. He also looked different. His eyes reflected light just a little too perfectly now. When he moved, it was with a subtle grace that betrayed the presence of systems far more complex than muscle and bone beneath his skin. "They're beautiful," he said softly, gazing at the half-formed ships. "They're terrifying," Elena replied. "That's usually how it starts." Chen smiled faintly. "That's how it always starts." The days following the Council confrontation had unfolded with relentless speed. Humanity's data networks had exploded under the weight of newly revealed truths. The sealed historical archives exposed by the Prometheus had been released without filters. Entire civilizations discovered that their stagnation had not been fate, it had been policy. Younger species across the galaxy began to protest. Council chambers that had not seen dissent in millennia now echoed with rage, fear, and demands for autonomy. Delegations were recalled. Ancient alliances fractured. Some worlds declared immediate withdrawal from Council jurisdiction. Others demanded access to the precursor trials. The Council itself shattered into factions. The Preservation Bloc, led by the Orbiters and several ancient militarized species, demanded that humanity be isolated and sanctioned. They argued that the Prometheus represented an uncontrollable existential threat. The Ascension Bloc, led quietly by the Serani and dozens of younger member races, argued that the era of enforced stagnation had ended. For the first time in 12,000 years, the Galactic Council did not speak with a single voice, and humanity stood at the center of the fracture. The Prometheus became a pilgrimage site. Alien envoys arrived by the hundreds, not to negotiate trade or borders, but to ask questions that had never before been allowed to be spoken aloud. Are we truly unworthy? Were we ever given the chance to prove otherwise? What if we fail the tests? Grant's answer to all of them was always the same. Failure is part of becoming worthy. Only refusal to choose is unforgivable. Back on Earth, the first volunteers stepped forward. Scientists, engineers, pilots, medics, soldiers. Not all of them were eager for transformation. Many only wanted to stand near the edge of the future and decide for themselves. Dr. Chen had been among the first. The integration process was not forced. It never was. The station interface, now housed deep within the Prometheus, accepted only willing candidates, and it still demanded its trials. Chen's had been quiet and devastating. He had been forced to relive every failure of his career, not as memory, but as consequence. He felt the alien microbes he had once misdiagnosed kill entire colonies. He watched technological shortcuts he had once defended spiral into cascading disasters. He experienced the weight of knowledge wielded without wisdom. The station did not punish him. It simply asked one question at the end. "Would you choose the same path again?" Chen answered, "No." The station accepted him. Not all candidates did. Some emerged unchanged. Some failed and walked away. And some were rejected so completely that the interface erased itself from their minds, as if it had never existed. Grant had warned them. The technology does not care how badly you want to be more. It only cares who you already are. The first human-integrated ships began patrols along the outer council borders. They did not threaten. They did not posture. They simply existed. A quiet statement that humanity was no longer confined to the technological childhood assigned to it. The Vacor Dominion began mobilizing fleets. Their generals spoke openly of preventive war. But then 2 Vacor colony worlds reported a catastrophic bioplague, one no known council medical technology could halt. Their governments requested human aid only as a final, humiliating gesture of desperation. The Prometheus arrived within hours. Its medical teams did not deploy weapons. They deployed precursor bio-repair fields. The plague vanished in 6 days. The Vacor colonies rebelled against their own war command 3 weeks later. The Dominion's mobilization quietly collapsed. Elsewhere, species that had never spoken on the council floor found their voices. Trade routes shifted. Military alliances decayed. The galaxy began to move again after millennia of artificial stillness. And at the center of it all, humanity did not conquer. Humanity built. The new Earth fleet did not resemble the fleets of the ancient species. There were no planet crackers, no reality-tearing superweapons. Instead, each vessel carried gardens like the one on the Prometheus, gravity-defying forests woven through quantum frameworks. Each ship housed mixed crews, humans, Serani, Vacor dissidents, Aurelian scholars, and dozens of other species who chose collaboration over dominance. They worked together not because the Council demanded it, but because they chose it. One evening, as the construction of the 12th ship neared completion, Elena and Chen stood watching Earth turn slowly beneath the station. "How does it feel?" Elena asked. "Being connected to something that large." Chen considered the question carefully. "It feels like being blind your entire life," he said at last, and then discovering that color is real. He touched the transparent barrier gently. "I can sense quantum probability now. Not fully, not like Grant, but enough to feel when futures begin to bend. And right now, they're bending everywhere." Elena studied his reflection in the glass. "And you're still you?" Chen smiled. "I still make terrible coffee. I still hate early briefings. And I still get excited when I see new data curves that shouldn't exist." He paused. "The technology enhances, it doesn't replace. That's the difference between the precursors and every empire that came after them." A soft chime rang across the deck. Grant's face appeared in holographic projection between them. "Admiral Vasquez," he said, "we've received 7 formal applications for precursor trial access." Elena blinked. 7? "Yes, from 7 different species, all independent of Council authority. The number would have been unthinkable just months earlier." "Word spreads fast when fear breaks," Chen murmured. Grant nodded. "And fear has broken." Grant's image shifted as background stars drifted past behind him. "The Prometheus is currently en route to the 4th sector. There are unusual readings out here, patterns that match precursor station signatures." Elena's stomach tightened. "Another station? Possibly more than one," Grant replied. "We don't know how many exist. Only that the one we found was not meant to be the only opportunity." "Opportunity," Elena said carefully, "or warning." Grant's expression darkened slightly. "Sometimes," he said, "they are the same thing." The galaxy learned to speak a new language in the months that followed. It was not the language of conquest or treaties, nor the cold precision of council law. It was the language of possibility, of risk, of change that could no longer be contained inside sealed chambers and ancient hierarchies. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the command deck of Earth Defense Command Station 1, watching the stars stretch as the station's external arrays adjusted for long-range precursor resonance scans. The faint aurora of quantum traffic shimmered across the void like distant lightning. Dr. Chen stood beside her, his hands folded behind his back. "Grant's signal triangulation just updated," he said quietly. "The pattern is stable." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. "Then the rumors are true," she said. "There really are more out there." Chen nodded. The Prometheus was not alone. The precursor database, once fully unlocked, revealed records buried beneath layers of self-modifying encryption. Records of 6 additional human colony vessels that had vanished in the same decade as the Prometheus. The Destiny, the Voyager, the Armstrong, the Bradbury, the Zheng He, the Ibn Battuta, each had been declared lost. Each had been mourned. Each had become a footnote in humanity's expansion into the unknown. And now, each had left a faint quantum echo in the same impossible spectrum as the Prometheus. "They didn't all find the same station," Chen said. "The signatures aren't identical. Whatever pulled them, it wasn't a single location. It was a network." Elena stared at the stars. A network of tests. Yes. The real humanity had not stumbled into a singular miracle. It had been noticed. Across council space, reactions were anything but unified. World after world erupted into political upheaval as younger species demanded access to precursor trials under human supervision. Entire planetary assemblies voted to defy council restrictions openly. In dozens of systems, long-frozen research programs roared back to life under human-provided ethical frameworks. But not all reactions were hopeful. Several ancient species mobilized covert fleets. Shadow alliances formed in the dark between civilizations that had failed the tests in earlier ages. Their fear was not theoretical. They remembered what the precursors judged, and they knew they had been found wanting. The preservation bloc grew desperate. Sabotage attempts against human shipyards increased. Assassination plots were uncovered weekly. Espionage networks that had slumbered for centuries activated with murderous urgency. Each attempt failed, not through violence, through foresight. Grant's integrated commanders began to sense probability collapse points, moments where violence would branch into catastrophe. Human fleets intercepted attacks before they became history. Assassins were disarmed before they pulled triggers. Entire conspiracies unraveled without a single shot fired. It unsettled the galaxy more than open warfare ever could. Humanity was no longer reacting. Humanity was anticipating. The final council vote came without warning. After 3 months of deadlock and escalating internal fracture, Ambassador Krell invoked emergency authority and forced a full assembly decision on humanity's status. Every representative across 12,000 years of accumulated power logged in simultaneously. The chamber was filled beyond capacity. Ancient species of living crystal, sentient plasma, hive intelligences, biomechanical colossi, and fragile biological civilizations all stood in silent tension. At the center platform, Ambassador Krell's crystalline form pulsed with restrained fury. "The matter before the council is this," the arbiter announced. "Humanity has violated developmental law, redistributed prohibited knowledge, and destabilized the balance of galactic advancement. We vote now on whether humanity shall be expelled or contained." Across the chamber, the Serani elder rose slowly. Its luminous form flickered with sorrow rather than anger. "Contained how?" the elder asked. Krell hesitated. "With sanctions, with surveillance, with enforced technological regression, if necessary." A ripple of unease traveled to the chamber. The Serani elder's voice lowered. "You would attempt to unlearn what they now are." "They are a danger," Krell snapped. "They awaken forces even the precursors feared." The chamber stirred. For the first time, another ancient species spoke in direct opposition to the orbiters. "And what of your fear?" the being asked. "Is it truly for the galaxy, or for your position within it?" Krell's internal light flared. The vote began. World after world cast their decision. Opposition rose higher than any previous vote in council history, but fear remained powerful. When the tally concluded, silence overtook the chamber. The final result appeared: 417. Advancement, 293. Containment. For the first time in 12,000 years, the council had voted to allow a younger species to advance beyond their assigned tier by open decision rather than silent manipulation. Ambassador Krell stood motionless. "Humanity is hereby granted provisional Tier 2 advancement status," the arbiter announced at last. "Under continuous observation, access to precursor trials will be made available to all council species under human supervision and ethical governance. Any misuse will result in immediate revocation." The chamber erupted, some in relief, some in rage, some in quiet awe. On Earth, cheers echoed through command centers, city-states, orbital stations, and frontier worlds alike. For the first time, humanity's advancement was no longer conditional on ancient permission. It was conditional on its own restraint. And that, Elena believed, was the only condition that mattered. 3 weeks later, the Prometheus detected something impossible. Grant stood at the command well of his living ship, staring into layered sensor projections that cascaded through multiple dimensions at once. Probability maps twisted like liquid glass before his eyes. "It's moving," one of his integrated officers whispered. "Not the stations, something else." Grant's expression hardened. "The shadow sector," he said. "That region of null space beyond mapped precursor construction zones." "What's there?" a human navigator asked. Grant didn't answer immediately. When he did, His voice was lower than any of them had ever heard it. Records of a civilization that passed the tests completely. Silence. They didn't fail, Grant continued. They didn't turn the technology into weapons. They didn't collapse into domination. Then what happened to them? The navigator asked. Grant closed his eyes. They vanished. A new warning glyph ignited across the Prometheus's core interface. Not a threat alert, a historical echo. The last message ever recorded by a fully ascended precursor-approved civilization. The text translated automatically. Phase 3 is not an endpoint. It is a threshold. Do not seek what found us. Grant felt the warning reverberate through his thoughts like distant thunder. They didn't just leave this universe, he whispered. Something found them. Back on Earth, Elena received the transmission with a heavy heart. Another enemy? She asked quietly. Grant appeared as a soft hologram beside her. Not yet, he said, but not a myth either. Chen stood nearby, studying the warning. If Phase 3 wasn't the final stage of advancement, he said slowly, then the precursors themselves might not have been the top of the chain. Grant nodded. And neither are we. The first jump of the renewed Prometheus fleet began 2 days later. Not toward conquest, not toward domination, but toward the lost ships. One by one, humanity's first children of the stars were being called back. The Destiny, the Voyager, the Armstrong, the Bradbury, the Zheng He, the Ibn Battuta, each signal faint, each echo distorted. Some were stationary, some were moving, and one was accelerating towards something far beyond known space. Elena stood at the viewing deck of the station as the Prometheus and its escort vessels vanished into folded starlight. Do you think they survived? Chen asked. Elena exhaled slowly. I think they endured, she said, just like Grant did. A soft tremor passed through the station. Subtle, nearly imperceptible. Not from engines, from space-time itself. Chen's eyes widened slightly. You felt that too, didn't you? Elena nodded. The universe was shifting. Not violently, but decisively. And humanity, once the youngest voice in the council, now stood at the edge of questions no civilization had ever answered safely. Far beyond the galactic rim, something ancient stirred in response to the awakening of precursor networks that had been silent for eons. It did not hate. It did not fear. It simply noticed. And for the first time in uncounted ages, it noticed humanity. Elena whispered the words that had once sounded like legend. Humanity prevailed. Somewhere in the deep dark between universes, something else whispered back. And now, we see you.